Hello and welcome to the Nature Unplugged podcast, where we are all about inspiring wellness in the digital age. Let's get going. Well, hello and welcome to the Nature Unplugged podcast with me, your host, Sebastian Slovan, and with me, co-host Sonia Mohammed.
Hello, everybody.
Good morning, Sonia.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Morning.
Okay, you ready?
Yes.
Let's get into it. This episode 52. We're just chugging along with these episodes. The episode title is What is Nature? ?
Good title.
What is nature? So what comes to mind when you hear the word nature, Sonia? Do you envision mountains and forests and other wild, remote, and untouched wilderness?
Mm-hmm.
Or do you think about suburban parks and gardens and things like that?
More the wild, remote stuff.
Or perhaps it's something totally different.
Mm-hmm.
Perhaps. In this episode, we're going to look at reframing our definition or mindset around what nature is. Yeah, it's going to be exciting. But before we get into that, Sonia is here with some Nature Unplugged updates.
Yeah, so we are launching a new service, our ENU Wellness Membership and Program. So this is a high-touch experience, and it offers a combination of coaching and ENU walks. It takes a holistic, solution-based approach to wellness in the digital age, which is a good approach in my opinion.
What does ENU mean?
Yeah.
For someone who doesn't know that.
Experience Nature Unplugged.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, great.
So the program's for tweens, teens, and young adults who are looking to improve their overall health and wellness. They might feel overwhelmed with technology and digital media, or maybe they're interested in developing their capacity for leadership or going through an important transition in life or school. So enrollment is open now. Give us a call or visit our website if you'd like more information.
Check it out, natureunplugged.com. Very exciting for this. We've had some good reach out, people reaching out to us about this.
Yeah, good feedback so far.
Excellent. Okay, anything else for Nature Unplugged updates?
Those are the updates.
Great. Okay, cool. So I'm excited to jump into this topic because it's something we talk about a lot in whether it's coaching, workshops, or work in general. But the basic idea here is that many of us have a really specific view of what nature is. And as we talked about in the beginning, it's oftentimes this vision of a remote forest or mountains way out in the middle of nowhere, and there's typically not people around, and that's a lot of times what the vision is. But I think the challenge is that not a whole lot of people have the opportunity to experience places like that, right? Mm-hmm. And so our view is, if that's a barrier, it's not necessarily a barrier to people getting outside, but our view is that you don't have to go to Patagonia or Australia or some like far off amazing nature spot to experience the benefits of nature, right? Mm-hmm. It could be hanging out in your backyard. It could be going to an urban park. It could be just watching the clouds go by, or hanging out on a little piece of grass. Lots of options. So that's what we're going to talk about today. What is nature to you? And I think it's really helpful to reframe it. And this was really inspired by an article that we saw. It's been a few weeks since we've seen this article.
Maybe a month or two.
Yeah. Anyhow, really cool article done by NPR. You may have heard of it or seen it, about a Oakland-based photographer named Chanell Stone, who is really doing a lot of wonderful work in helping to reframe our vision of nature photography and what we think about nature. It's pretty cool. And so the article really inspired us to do this podcast. And I'll let you jump in here too. But the article is really about two things, right? One is reframing what we think of as nature. And it's basically, a lot of her work is urban settings. It's like South Los Angeles. It's like the Bronx in New York, places in Oakland where nature, it's like low socioeconomic spots with not a lot of necessarily parks and stuff, but it's like she has awesome pictures of like cool vines growing out of a, like in a project, or just like random little nature spurts in places where you wouldn't expect it. And she's often in the photography as well, which is pretty cool. So it's about reframing nature and about also like race in nature.
Yeah, well, and there's research, right, and data to back that up, that Black Americans account for less than 2% of national park visitors.
2%.
2%, that's a small amount. But yeah, it's cool photography, and it's helpful, even for us who, we are working in nature and talking about nature all the time. It's a helpful reminder and reframe, because often when you're in these more urban settings, you don't think of them as like nature-rich opportunities to really get the benefits of nature. But there is actually so much opportunity, usually quite close by, and it's just about changing the way we're thinking about nature and looking for it in the places around us. Because it's not even really a national park, right? I think for me, I often think of like, oh, the best nature places are national parks, but that's a pretty limited view, I would say.
Yeah.
They are great, but...
Yeah, it reminds me of when I was a youngster. So my mom was born in LA, in like kind of Eastern LA.
Mm-hmm.
And it's interesting, right? Like when my mom was a kid, it was like a wide open, like a lot of land, and it was like orange orchards. Orchards.
Orchards. It was like an orchards combo.
Orange orchards. That's hard for me to say for some reason. Anyway, lots of nature when she was growing up. But over time, the landscape changed. It became very like Los Angeles, like a lot of concrete. And it changed a lot. So when by the time my mom moved out, it was like very much different than when she was a little kid. And then by the time I was around and visiting and hanging out with my grandparents, it was totally different. But even so, super, like urban East LA, not a place you think of getting a lot of nature time. But I remember even being there, when you kind of drive by, you're like, this is like, I don't want to be around here in terms of nature access. But I remember being there. There was all these little pockets of, whether it was like, just a patch of grass in their front yard, or there weren't a lot of parks around, but we found nature. Like my grandparents had a little garden in their backyard, like a little mini patch of soil that had tomatoes and stuff like that. There was an avocado tree in their back neighbor's house. So anyway, it just reminded me of like these little pieces of nature.
Similarly, growing up where I grew up, I was close to a big national park, and I remember always like that when people say, what, where did you grow up? And that's one of the things that I think about all the time. And when I think about nature, actually, I think about that park. Often it's like a picture to me of what nature is. But then I also remember in my backyard, we lived in townhouses, and there was nice like green space around it, but the backyard butted up against sort of another townhome bro's backyard, and it was maybe like 10 feet from our deck to their deck. It wasn't a huge amount of space in between, but there were some trees and a nice little bit of green space. And I spent a whole lot of time, I spent way more time back there, like running in the trees, digging up worms, watching squirrels and birds. So it's funny, right, to think that spent probably 80% of my time back there and maybe 5% of the time in the actual park, but I think about the park when I think about nature, not my backyard. So I think that just speaks to this effort to want to reframe nature and really think about different ways we can interact with it and move away a bit from this pristine, untouched wilderness sort of concept.
Right. Because it is quite limiting, right? That view. And this is something, again, we've mentioned this, but it comes up a lot in our work. It's like, well, I don't know, like the attitude is like, well, it's going to be a while till I can get a week off work or whatever to go to, in our case, it'd be like, the Sierra Nevadas or somewhere far away, versus just getting that nature time, right, in your like whether it's your backyard, front porch, little tree on your street. It's
or plants
amazing.
Inside your house, even.
Right?
Yeah.
Right. And circling back to the benefits of nature, we talk about this a lot, but I think it's worth circling back on this. That just 5 minutes in nature doesn't have to be pristine nature. It can be just hanging out with a tree or being outside in the fresh air, looking at the clouds, is enough to boost mood and positive emotions.
And 15 minutes will drop your cortisol levels by about 16%. That's your stress hormone. So it's really just, you could be a break at work or school, 15 minutes. We always talk about, I'm like a little lizard and I like to just go lay out in the sun for 5 minutes when I need a break, and it really helps. It's such a good reset for me, and I love it.
Yeah, it's pretty cool.
Yeah, and so I think that's the piece of nature that often also is like absent from our collective agreed definition of it. Is, this has to be pristine, and you have to be spending a lot of time out there.
Right.
And so it's minimizing that perception, in my opinion.
I just lost my train of thought for a second, but I'm back. It was interesting, right? Because when we did the research for our book, Experience Nature Unplugged, A Guide to Wellness in the Digital Age, available on Amazon. A lot of the studies around this are, not all of them are like this, but a lot of them are, two groups of people. For the 5 minutes in nature one, if I remember correctly, it was 5 minutes spent in an urban park sitting versus 5 people basically inside in like the lab.
Sure.
And so it's not like 5 minutes in the jungles of Amazon, the Amazon rainforest or something like that. And a lot of, and we're right with the nature walks, right? It's urban parks often where they do this research. It's not, far, far away.
Yeah.
Which is cool.
And I mean, things like car safaris, that's fun too. I mean, a lot of people think of
what's a car safari?
Car commutes as like boring and, I don't know, obviously not a ton of nature. You're like in a machine on a highway. And often sort of on our phones or, sort of distracting ourselves and just getting through it. But
driving on our phones?
Well, maybe not the driver, but the passengers.
Passenger, yeah. Car safaris, let me just point out.
Yeah, I was just
it's not, okay, no, you go.
You're not actually in like a safari park, but it's turning your everyday commute into an opportunity to spot and appreciate and admire nature, like birds or deer occasionally, in the hills here in San Diego. Not often, but sometimes. And it's special when you see it. But we see a lot of hawks, ospreys, sort of as we're cruising around, sometimes some egrets. It's actually, I remember when I first started spending time with Sebastian in San Diego, and we would often be driving somewhere, and he would get very, very excited in the middle, like on the 5 freeway, driving, and then be like, oh, Sony, bird, hawk, and he'd like point to it, and it'd be on a light post or just flying through. And at first it seemed really unique, and now I can hardly go through a time driving on the 5 or the 101 without seeing, a hawk or an osprey or an egret. It's like once you start looking, they're there. They're waiting for you to see them.
They're all over the place.
Yeah.
It's important to point out, though, I was going to say this, that as the driver, you need to be cautious when you're on a car safari.
You can take that advice, too.
So I'm really talking to myself. It's more for the passengers.
Yeah, that's true.
But yeah, lots of birds out here. This is interesting. I feel like you're now a true Californian because you say the 5, the 101. Isn't that in the East Coast they say it differently?
Yeah, you say like I-85 or...
You don't say the road.
No, I hardly even remember actually now how to say it the other way. Yeah, I'm here.
You've lost your roots.
Not true. So I think that's a useful way to rethink of nature. I mean, what's an example for you, Seb, of a place around San Diego or a place like on the daily that you get nature that's maybe not the way people typically think about it?
Yeah. What isn't an example of that?
Oh, dear.
Just kidding. Well, I was going to say, too, one example of, there's a few examples. Mm-hmm. One is our front yard area. Mm-hmm. We just have recently, we should do a little video on this. I think we will at some point. I'm not, or I'll say we're not collectively, but I'll speak for myself, that good at gardening and stuff. Don't have the green thumb yet. It's not necessarily a strength of mine, I'll say. But we have, for the last several months, been cultivating a native plant garden in our front yard. Basically, we've planted some native plants and are trying to not kill them. But it's really cool because even though it's quite simple, I think, from a gardening perspective or landscape perspective, it's been really cool, a really wonderful connection with nature on the regular that I don't have to go very far for, that we don't have to go very far for. So we have like Cleveland sage, white sage, We have California poppies. We have
And buckwheat.
California, this special kind of California buckwheat you learn about the plants, but it's also, we're now seeing lots of bees and like all sorts of weird little native bees and little birds coming in.
And lizards.
We're kind of
Enriching
re-enriching the soil, re-enriching the habitat. When we moved in here, it was sort of like the vibe was, it was lawn plus little palm trees, more of like a Hawaiian vibe. And we're kind of going back to the native vibe.
Yeah, and it changed that space.
Nothing against
so
palm
much.
trees. Okay?
Yeah, they're still cool. Except the fronds can be really dangerous when they fall.
Fronds?
How do you say it?
I think it's
wrong?
fond.
Fond?
No, wait. No.
I don't know. It doesn't matter. Neither of us know.
It's a tough word day today.
It is.
Try and say orange orchard.
No, I won't.
Orchard.
But what I was gonna say was that area of our house was like always sort of lame feeling or like not that exciting, and now I get pretty excited when I pull into the house and it's like all these cool little plants. The poppies are going nuts. Yeah, the poppies are going strong right now.
What else do we have? Well, no.
We've got some plants in the house. Oh, yeah, manzanita.
Oh,
and lemonade berry.
Lemonade berry, yeah. You know, I think, so that's one way. I think going out into the backyard, we're fortunate to have a, backyard that we can get out into, get some sun. But I think just for me, it's like little walks throughout the day, 20-minute walks that kind of mix up my work day and add a little nature time in there. I mean, I think I'll add too that today and most days, well, not most days, I did my morning routine, one of my favorite morning routines, which is bike to the beach, little beach run, a surf, bike back. It's a wonderful, we're close to that, so it's pretty cool. But it's such a great way to start the day with some nature time. Yeah. Sunny's rolling her eyes here.
My morning routine was, get up, make some lunch, make tea, unload the dishwasher. I'll get my nature time a little later today. I'm just not as spry in the morning as Sebastian is.
Early bird. Okay, cool. Well, I mean, circling back to this article for a second, it's just, we'll link it in the show notes, but the photos are really cool, really well done, and you should check it out.
Agreed. It's a good one.
Agreed.
Really worth it.
It's a worthwhile article. Okay. You know what time it is?
Ooh, I almost forgot. It's new news time.
Oh my goodness, new news time. Do the jingle, Sonia.
I don't have a jingle.
No, you got to do it.
Me out. Ba-do-do-do.
New news.
Too short?
No,
news.
You got to say new news in the jingle.
Ba-do-do-do. New news.
Oh, wow.
I'm going to work on it.
That was pretty good.
Okay.
New news. Okay. In this episode of New News, and so I think it's helpful to just share what is new news. New news, NU news, Nature Unplugged news.
Right.
That's the first thing to clarify. Is basically fun, silly, interesting, timely news about, whether it's about nature or technology. We kind of search for something funny or interesting in the nature or technology
It's usually
world.
not that hard to find something, which is incredible, actually.
No, check out this headline for new news today. Ready for it, Sonia?
I'm ready. I like this one.
Florida woman survives being hit by flying turtle.
Did the turtle survive?
Okay, let me tell you about what happened.
Oh my gosh.
Here's the story. Okay. So basically, this is like classic Florida news. I haven't spent much time in Florida, so, if this offends any Floridians, I apologize. This is from Daytona Beach, Florida. It was a few weeks ago. So this is a woman and her daughter driving on Interstate 95. See, if that was in California, we'd say the 95. They're driving on Interstate 95 when suddenly, out of nowhere, a turtle flies through the windshield and blasts the lady's head. It's kind of intense. Hit her in the head. She got cut. She's fine, I think. But a laceration to the forehead, significant bleeding, but it sounds like she's okay. We're recertifying our wilderness first aid. Advanced first aid. So they, probably applied direct pressure and sorted her out.
Head wounds, they bleed a lot.
Head wounds. Anyway, so basically the hypothesis is that the turtle was probably crossing the road, and another car hit the turtle.
Launched it in the air.
The turtle got launched in the air and flew through the windshield of another car, hitting this lady in the face. There's a quote from her daughter saying, "I swear," this is from the 911 call. "I swear to God, this lady has the worst luck of anything."
The woman's daughter called her mom a lady? This lady.
It's also a funny just sentence.
Yeah, it is.
It's classic Florida.
But tell me, is the turtle okay?
Yeah, this is the big news. Okay, so the woman's okay, first of all.
Yeah, well, you said that already. I knew that. Yep. But the turtle.
The turtle. It turns out the turtle was fine. It had a few scratches on its shell and was released back into the nearby woods. This is what the police officer said in the article.
That's incredible. I'm assuming the turtle brought its head and legs in and everything, and it became a little like
when it got
disc.
launched.
Yeah.
You know, it's interesting. I'm curious I don't know if they did a thorough first aid check on the turtle. You know, was there a vet there? You think so?
Usually, like animal control will bring a hit animal.
Sonia, maybe. Yeah, maybe.
That's the.
But it sounds like it was. It sounds like it probably
made it.
It probably jumped back into its shell and got hurled through the world. Can turtles just do whatever they want when they're in their shell?
I thought
it's pretty incredible.
I thought like I don't know. They've got some vulnerable parts.
Like their belly, right?
Well, their belly I think is also a little hard, but not super hard.
I'm less familiar with turtles than maybe the average listener, but okay, that's new news for today. Again, the turtle is okay.
Yeah, the lady and the turtle are both okay.
Everyone's okay. So, new news. That'll do it. And that'll do it for this episode of the Nature Unplugged podcast. Thank you so much for tuning in. You can find our episodes on Apple Podcasts, SoundCloud, Spotify, basically wherever you listen to podcasts, we will be there. We're now on YouTube as well, Sonia. Just wanted to point that out.
Thanks.
We'd love it if you could take a moment to rate and subscribe on Apple Podcasts. It helps us a ton. It helps our channel and just helps us know what we're doing well, what we're not doing well, and helps us adjust and adapt and, continue to bring you the best content we can. Be sure and check out www.natureunplugged.com for more information about our coaching, workshops, presentations, retreats, and other services. Check it out. And, of course, you can find more detailed show notes on our website. And there you go. That'll do it. So thanks so much for listening. Until next time, remember to experience nature unplugged.
Bye, everybody.
Bye, and watch out for turtles.
I know. Watch out for those turtles. Be safe out there, turtles and people.
Bye.
Bye.
Things change like seasons out of our control. If you think you should go, I will let you go.